Welcome to the channel, friends, and today in the garage I plan on doing a project on the Corvette, and that's going to be wrapping the rear spoiler in 5D carbon fiber wrap. So what I have on there right now is a full width Ron Fellows style hydro dipped carbon fiber spoiler. I'm just not happy with the way it looks and mainly the way it fits on the rear bumper. So I'm going to go ahead and I have a genuine GM rear spoiler that I'm going to wrap in carbon fiber wrap and see how that looks. It should have a better fit in comparison to that reproduction Ron Fellows spoiler. So the car came originally with the standard ZR1 extended, two kind of wing spoiler. It's kind of short. I just didn't think it fit the car that well. I just never liked the look of it from the back end. I like more so a rounded profile, like as if it were a Dodge Viper or something. So if I don't end up liking the way the spoiler looks on the car, I'm going to end up ponying up and buying the real deal, and that's going to be a real carbon fiber MTI racing spoiler, which I've wanted for the car for a while. I've just been kind of pussyfooting around and not, jumping for the big dollar spoiler just yet. But if that's something that's going to interest you, stay tuned, and I hope you enjoy the video. Here is my 2012 Corvette ZR1. Right now I have it at 724 wheel horsepower and 711 torque. That's with the smaller 235 pulley and Cook's 2-inch primary headers and no cats. And what else I have? A K&N intake, larger 1050 injectors. And yeah, it's running sweet. It really is. And some of the stuff I've done to the outside are APR carbon mirrors, as you can see there, which do not fold, by the way. Kind of disappointing, but still a great looking mirror for the car. But today we're going to be talking about this spoiler here, which I'm not too fond of. It's a 10-foot spoiler, so from 10 feet away it looks good. Once you get up close, obviously you can start telling that it's a faux carbon fiber. That's not cool with me. So the reason why I don't like the fitment on this is because of this seam right here. It just doesn't match up with the bumper profile. So I'm going to go ahead and put on the GM spoiler and see how that matches up, and cover that with the 3D, 5D carbon, whatever you want to call it, and see how it compares to this one. But the weave on the wrap is actually more realistic looking than this right here. This is kind of a 2D carbon, if you can tell from the video. Yeah, it's just not, it's not ideal. I just don't like it. So we're going to change it out, and I'll show you what I'm going to replace it with, and I'll go through the steps of removing the spoiler from the car and installing the new one. So let's take a look in the workshop, and I'll show you what I'm doing on the car. So here we have the old spoiler. I have the standard ZR1 extended, 2-fin spoiler, and this is what I'm going to replace it with. A full width Ron Fellows spoiler. This one happens to be blade silver, but I'm going to obviously wrap that. It's not going to matter. And I went ahead and sprayed some nightshades on my third brake light as well. 2 coats of nightshades and 2 coats of clear. I have my tail lights all blacked out with the nightshades. So let's start taking off the rear spoiler from the car, and I'll show you what that looks like. So whenever you take a rear spoiler off, you're going to have crud and imprint from the footprint of the rear spoiler. So I've already had the stock spoiler off, and I've had to buff this whole rear bumper because it left a really nasty imprint, which you really can't tell on camera. But if you saw it with the naked eye, you could see the outline of the old factory spoiler, the white one that I had on here. But the one I just had on here, the hydro dipped carbon, I just put on there with just hand tight finger pressure just to hold it down because I wasn't sure that I was going to keep it on there for sure. So I did not incur any prints from that spoiler that I had on there. So I'm going to have to clean this up and polish it. That way I can put the new spoiler down and there's not going to be any kind of residue or dirt left behind from the old spoiler. So I went ahead and laid out the template to properly drill out the end holes for the Ron Fellows bolt pattern. The stock ZR1 spoiler does not have the same bolt hole pattern as the Ron Fellows. The outer two holes are further back on the Ron Fellows, and the ZR1 is right up here. So what I did was insert 2 punches on the existing holes to line everything up and to locate the whole template, and then I went ahead and drew a mark with a green marker for where I need to drill. Same thing on this side, just a simple hole, and that'll allow me to mount the Ron Fellows bumper properly and to fully cinch down and bolt it up all the way to the end. Otherwise, you can get away with just bolting up the 4 middle screws on the spoiler, and you most likely will be fine. The bumper is now cleaned. I went ahead and polished it out. Any residual marks from that hydro dipped carbon spoiler is now gone. As you can see there, that is the new hole here on the right. This is the old ZR1 hole on the left. So you have to drill the end holes to fully secure the rear spoiler, but it wasn't a big deal. I just went ahead and marked it up and did a nice clean hole into the bumper. So I want to show you that the Ron Fellows and the ZR1 spoiler hardware is not the same. And I'll show you why here in the workshop. So here is their GM Ron Fellows spoiler, full width. So these threaded clips here that go on the end, they're much smaller than the ZR1 ones, which are right here. These are larger clips, larger thread. The problem is that the holes aren't going to line up if you try to reuse these on the GM Ron Fellows. Same thing with the hydrocarbon. If you try to reuse these don't really line up because they're too big and they don't fit in the slot. So as you can see there, this is the standard factory ZR1 spoiler, and it mounts slightly different. It has 3 extra spots here on the end near the fin, and it uses these larger clips and threaded anchors to attach it to the bumper. So if you reuse those, it's not going to work. Okay, it's not going to work with a standard Ron Fellows full width spoiler bolt pattern. So you have to use these smaller studs that come with the aftermarket spoiler here to mount it, which is not a big deal. I'll go ahead and do that and get ready to wrap this with the 5D carbon wrap right now. All right, so I'm here the next day. This morning I went ahead and finished up wrapping the spoiler, and I'm really happy with the way it looks. It looks much better than the hydrocarbon. So I just took my time with it. You know, I heated it up, I pulled it, I stretched the wrap over the spoiler to make sure there's no like seams or kinks in it or any air bubbles. So I just took my time, 2-3 inches at a time all the way around. I trimmed it, and here is the finished product basically, and it looks really good. It does have a little bit of an orange peel texture finish to it, but it's barely noticeable. I mean, at first glance, it looks like a real carbon fiber spoiler, to be honest. This 5D wrap really does the trick. So I'm going to show you the mounting scheme and the rest of the inside of this. So the Ron Fellows does mount differently than the standard ZR1 stock spoiler. So the main difference is these larger threaded studs here. So the ZR1 will have them to mount the third brake light. So you'll have another one here and another one here on the ZR1, which are just like these posts here. So on this one, you have to install the screws because the spoiler does not accept the larger thread for these posts. So you have to use the smaller screws. Also, the threaded posts on each end of the spoiler are different. So the clips are smaller and the thread is smaller. So I just used the new hardware that I have with the hydro spoiler to complete this. So I'm really happy with the way it looks. I went ahead and installed the third brake light, which I did black out. Flip this thing around. So I used the nightshades, 2 coats of nightshades and 2 coats of clear in that, and it looks really good. I'm really happy with that. So got all the air bubbles out. You know, it took a while, but good things usually take time. So I'm really happy with this right now, and I'm going to go ahead and now mount this on the car and show you what it looks like. Okay, so I went ahead and mounted up the spoiler on the car, and I'm really happy with the fitment. There is no gaps at all, and the factory spoiler does fit very well with the wrap. So really happy with the way it came out. It really matches the carbon top on the ZR1 very well. It has that like one-piece solid carbon look, like as if it were a real piece of epoxy and resin, you know, laid carbon. So it has that look, and it can't really tell that it's fake. So I'm really happy with that for the time being. Like I said, I might still get that MTI Racing spoiler, the real carbon one, but for the time being, this is a good option because it looks good, and it looks just like the Anderson Composites real carbon spoiler, which is an exact replica of this in real carbon. I had that spoiler on order for almost a year and a half, and they just don't want to make the spoiler anymore. They just don't care about C6s. and I'm really unhappy with the customer service I got from them. Basically, from their point of view was they're taking care of all the C7 and C8 products, and anybody who had an order with any of the C6 components or products from them, they put on the back burner. Honestly, that's what they said to me. So, not happy with Anderson Composites, but this was the option. Pretty much, it's exactly the same style. It's that full width GM Ron Fellows spoiler. So, if you're thinking of getting any Anderson Composites, this is a good option. Just wrap yourself a GM spoiler, and pretty much you got the same thing. Well, guys, that's it for today. I really hope you enjoyed the video. And if you have any questions or comments, please place them right down below. And if you haven't done so already, please subscribe to the channel and hit that bell notification. I want to thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you on the next video.